I need new music.
This is the JJO Discover New Music Podcast.
Very excited joining me to talk brand new music from Alter Bridge. The man with golden pipes, Myles Kennedy from Alter Bridge. Myles, how are you, man?
I'm wonderful. It's great to be here with you.
Brand new album from Alter Bridge, Pawns and Kings. So here we are coming up on 19 years of Alter Bridge. 7 studio album from the band. You guys are seasoned veterans at this point. I mean, there's really nothing you have to prove. Done this multiple times over. How'd you guys find new ways to maybe challenge yourself with the new Alter Bridge and Pawns and Kings?
Well, that's the $1 million question, right? At this point, after you've made 7 records together, I mean, what do you do? I think for us, it's just a matter of, the songs are paramount. As an A&R guy once told me a long time ago, he says, "You're not in the music business, you're in the songwriting business," and he has had a good point. So we make sure that the material is strong when we go into something, and then as far as mixing it up from record to record, I think the philosophy that we had going into this was less is more. We've made records where the production goes to you kind of take the production value up to a certain height, and you establish that sonic fury. And with this record, what we wanted to do was strip, pull it back a little bit from a production standpoint. Not as many layers. Don't incorporate all of the elements of, as much as multi-tracking is an awesome tool, you can kind of overdo it when you get in the studio. And let's try this part here. Let's try this part. And before you know it, it's like you've got 100+ tracks. Of
layers and layers and layers on there. Yeah,
exactly. So that was the MO going into this, was to kind of keep the reins pulled in a little bit. Yeah.
Pulling the reins back on that's like a couple of Clydesdales, respectively speaking.
Well, with me as a Shetland pony, so.
Everyone likes the little ponies. Everyone likes
exactly.
No, going into the production, obviously, this is your 5th consecutive album with Mike, aka Elvis, as your producer. What's the reasoning behind? Is that all part of the sound? Obviously, he's a very talented producer, but why is that so important for the sound that Alter Bridge is going for, to keep that consistency with your producer?
I think for us, it's just because it's the relationship that works. We discovered that there's a real, we're on the same page, and there's a trust there. And it's interesting. I was just, interestingly enough, listening to an interview from about 10 years ago this morning with Tom York from Radiohead, and they're asking him why they always use Nigel as their producer with those Radiohead records. And I think he was using him on his solo albums as well. And he's just like, it's the same thing we feel, where it's like, once you find somebody that you really gel with and you trust, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, as they say. and he's amazing. Elvis is and he's funny, and I'm a kind of a goofball, so I enjoy hanging out with them, and it's really just a license to goof off for 6 weeks and make a record in the process.
Can't beat that, man. Jokes and music, they go hand in hand. And obviously, like you said, with that kind of copacetic relationship that you have, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And you guys are here again now on the 7th album. So you're doing something right, obviously, with Elvis in there. What I like about this album, and as I was kind of looking into it, you did something that we have not seen yet, and that is your longest track to date. 8 minutes, 22 seconds, Fable of the Silent Sun. I'm always intrigued by these long tracks. Did it start off like, all right, I want to write a long track? Or is it like, here's a 4-minute track, well, let's add this. Talk about that process and making this 8-minute kind of epic, if you will.
Yeah. Well, it's funny with epics. You never go into it with, at least I don't know if Mark does, I don't know if you sit down and go, okay, I want to write an epic, because you're definitely setting yourself up for a lot of work. So what happened with Fable of the Silent Sun is I was sitting in my studio for quite a while, messing with a few different pieces before I presented them to the band. And I had this section that I thought was going to be an intro. It was like 2 minutes plus. And then I thought, well, I don't know where this is going. And then I had another piece. I didn't have lyrics for either yet. They just kind of fragments. So I had these musical bodies put together, or musical elements, and then I fused them together. And I thought, okay, those work really well together. Now we're on to something. And then I developed a narrative from a lyrical standpoint. Then we got in the studio and we're doing pre-pro. Then Mark had a great idea for what would be like the solo section. So what ended up when I brought it to the band, it was like 7 minutes long already. And then Mark had an idea, and then it became, over 8 minutes. So yeah, and it's funny because it wasn't something that we planned. It just turned out it was funny because we were doing pre-production and Elvis was like, well, the song is like 8.5 minutes long now. And we're like, really? I mean, it didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Well, it's super cool to see. And it's interesting to see that progression of the band and where we're at now with the 7 album and now experimenting and having these long songs. And I mean, are we going to do maybe like a Tool thing where you only have 2 songs on the album? They're both 15 minutes long on each side. Is that what it'll be? Or 4 songs total?
Maybe one day. We have flirted with the idea of just doing, in fact, I think at one point we talked about it possibly being this record. Let's just do an album of all epics, and the label and management, they're like, we need a single somewhere. You're not going to get radio to play an 8-minute song.
Pull the Iron Butterfly, like 30-minute Inagata-Davida.
Right.
It'll be fantastic.
Exactly. Maybe one day.
One day, someday. Well, we can't wait either way. Do you got a favorite track on the album? So one maybe that really speaks to you?
Probably Fable the Silent Sun. I think not just because of the amount of work that went into it, but from a lyrical standpoint, because it's written from the perspective of a few of us, kind of looking at it's the idea that we've been on the planet for a while now and kind of looking at life in the rearview mirror and the mistakes you've made along the way and trying to convey what you learned from those mistakes to someone younger so they don't have to go through the same hardship you did. So there's a personal element there, and I think it's something that our fans will relate to, hopefully. But I like that one.
Well, again, we are so excited. The brand new album, Pawns and Kings, the 7th studio album from Alter Bridge. And I think a lot of people can say that, man, Myles has been spoiled with guitarists. Obviously, you've been able to play with Slash. You still do. Having Mark Tremonti on there, being a seasoned guitarist yourself, is there ever a point maybe as a lead man where you're like, oh, I got to keep up with Slash and Mark Tremonti? Like, this is a lot, guys. This is a lot. Even for me, Myles Kennedy.
Yeah, it's been good. I think that when guitar players get together, obviously there's kind of that friendly competition sort of thing. But I think more than anything, it's you feed off one another and you learn from one another. And that's what's been fascinating with especially with Alter Bridge, because we've been playing together for so long now. And so with Mark and I, when we bring ideas to the table now, Elvis, our producer, can't tell who brought what because we just kind of, it's kind of become this thing. Yeah, which is great. And so it's just like you learn and you evolve, which is really great. But you also just pick up people's work ethic, like hanging out with Slash. He's incredibly devoted to what he does, as is Mark. I think, that's the thing. You know this. When you hang out, when you live on the planet for a while, you discover people who excel at certain things. There's a reason, because they put in that 10,000 hours, right? They're devoted. And that's the thing that I've picked up from being in this industry for a long time is generally the guys who are at a certain level, it's because they put in the time, which is really inspiring.
Hey, this is Mark Tremonti. Discover new Alter Bridge now on JJO.
Madison Solid Rock 94.1 JJO. I'm Brock, and our guest for JJO Discover New Music is Myles Kennedy of Alter Bridge, and their new release, Pawns and Kings, is what we're highlighting this week on Discover New Music.
Well, it's been fun talking new music, but I have a couple things I want to dive into that I haven't had a chance to chat with you for, yet. And for people that don't know, you obviously have a long history of music, going back to playing trumpet and guitar in the high school jazz band. I believe it was a jazz fusion or an instrumental jazz fusion band. Cosmic, what was that?
Cosmic Dust.
Cosmic Dust. Okay. So you got Cosmic Dust. You were also in a teen air guitar band. If that is true, what was the name of that band? If you remember, this was back when you were 13, I believe.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a good. You know what? No one's ever asked about, and that could be the most important of all the bands I played in. Was the it's where it began. The Air Band, and so the Air Band, we put it together. Some friends, in our family church, there was the few of us teenagers who were rebelling, of course, and so we put together this Air Band. But it was a ton of fun. I mean, we just really got into it. We would build drum sets out of Quaker oat boxes, and then the tennis rackets. We graduated from tennis rackets. There was a gentleman in the church named Bud Smith who actually cut out a cool guitar. Like mine was basically the Randy Rhoads style Jackson. He made me out of plywood, which was brilliant. The name of the band, if I remember correctly, I think at one point we were called SPYDER, of course, right? And we drew our own tour shirts. We bought just red shirts and then would draw spider webs on the shirts with felt tip marker. This is the thing you do. So we were loving all this, right? And then we were put these shows together. And then my stepfather one day, kind of looked at me just with a certain level of disgust and just said, "Son, why don't you learn how to play for real?" And I was like, that is genius, Dad. And the rest is history.
Boy, if we had tape of like VHS, maybe Ash, if you can find maybe in the family history books, some VHS tapes of SPYDER performing these Air acts. My God, I want to see that.
Well, there are still photos floating around, which I might have to find, and they are pretty. It's pretty funny stuff. We were kind of ostracized at one point in the church because there was this thing called the Crop Walk, which was a 10-mile walk for charity. So at one of the parents thought it would be a great idea. Well, let's have the kids perform their Air Band afterwards, and we're like, it's going to be a great idea, and we open up the little performance with Shout at the Devil.
Oh, beautiful. Of course.
Right?
Of course.
Right? Then into Screaming for Vengeance by Judas Priest. I mean, it was we were just like going for it, and we cleared the room out. It was so much fun.
Bunch of old ladies having heart attacks.
Totally. Totally.
But to be fair, Shout at the Devil I guess it could be considered a religious song, maybe.
Yeah, it's not shout with the devil. Yeah. It's shout at the devil.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, thank you for sharing that, and I can't wait to see the old SPYDER concert tease. I think that's what we need to bring up. One more final question as we take this walk down memory lane. I know it's been quite some time since maybe you've done this or even thought about it, but do you still have the costume from the movie Rockstar? And so do you ever belt out some Steel Dragon from time to time?
I don't have the costume, and I regret it because at the last day of the shoot, somebody said that I could have purchased it for, I think, not a lot of money. And I was just like, no, I don't ever want to see that outfit again. But now I had no idea. In retrospect, I didn't know that 20 years later we'd still be talking about that film. Yeah. I certainly didn't think I'd still be in the music industry after 20 years. But yeah, so it was a lot of fun. Do I do stand up and shout every once in a while if I'm feeling it? I'm good warmed up and I'm feeling the crowd. I might just stand up and shout, and the crowd.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. Yeah. There's a lot. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go rent Amazon, whatever. Rockstar, Mark Wahlberg, Jennifer Aniston, killer soundtrack. And Myles is there at the end, and he makes his, that's your only movie, right? That's your only movie.
My only movie. Yeah, that's the only film you'll see me in. Actors get up way too early, and
well, I'm glad you're in that and you made that cameo, because now we can sit here and talk about it now. If you got time, could we do rapid fire, and then I'll get you on your way? Again, everyone, Myles Kennedy of Alter Bridge. We've been having fun talking about the new record, Pawns and Kings. No wrong answers on this, Myles. You just go with what's in your heart, and we're going to learn a little more about you. All right, first thing, more guitar, more drums, or more bass in your monitor?
More guitar.
I like it. I figured that from you.
Yeah.
Cool Ranch or nacho cheese Doritos?
Oh, Cool Ranch all the way.
I was a little worried when I asked that question. I feel like some friendships could be ruined with the wrong answer on that one, because Cool Ranch is the right answer.
So good.
Bigfoot or El Chupacabra? Now, you're a Washington State guy, so you probably maybe have even seen Bigfoot.
I am wearing my Wood Booger Bigfoot hat right now.
I just noticed that.
Yes.
We didn't plan this at all, folks. That is completely serendipitous.
Right?
Or El Chupacabra.
Bigfoot. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. Yeah.
Have you ever felt like you've come close to maybe seeing the elusive Bigfoot?
I, lived in the woods for a while as a kid in a little trailer home way out in the woods. And I don't know if it was Bigfoot that I saw, but I definitely saw something spooky.
Someone out there, that weird neighbor. That's what it was.
Right.
All right. You have to fight one. And I know you're a lover, not a fighter. But if you had to fight one, the entire cast of the Golden Girls circa 1988 with those little souvenir baseball bats, or
right.
The entire cast of the Little Rascals with prison shanks.
I'm going to go with the Golden Girls because I'm not going to attack children with a prison shank.
You've heard it here, folks. Myles Kennedy likes to fight old women. That's what it is. That's never be the tag above this interview right there. I know that's a tough one, but still,
that is a tough one. It's brutal.
Good choice. Good choice. Awesome. Thank you for humoring me, Myles. You're a rock star, dude, and congratulations on the 7th album. Again, folks, go get it. Alter Bridge, Pawns and Kings. Thank you so much for the time, Myles. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Brock, it's been a pleasure.
This is the JJO Discover New Music Podcast. Listen, rate, share, subscribe. Discover new music now at WJJO.com, in the JJO app, or wherever you get your podcasts. Brock has a new interview every Thursday evening between 6 and 7. 94.1 JJO.